What's up, fight fans, and welcome back to the Rusty Cage podcast. Ryan Jarrell, Greg Williams here as always. We have a couple of special guests on the show today to help us preview UFC 305, and it's a couple of Factory X boys, Cody Brundage, Dustin Jacoby on the program. Guys, thank you for being here.
Hey,
Yeah,
thanks for having us, man.
Excited to have you on here, and obviously a huge UFC pay-per-view. Before we dive into that, I want to start with both of you. Just talk a little bit about your career. Cody, I want to start with you first, man. Obviously, really tough ending to the Abdul Razak Al Hassan fight. Just first up, how you feeling? I know you talked a little bit before we started the show here with the concussion syndrome. Just run me, what it's been like since the fight and how you're feeling.
Yeah, man, it's definitely a bummer. I feel like that type of the way that fight went is almost worse than a loss. It's obviously not, but it feels that way. There's just no closure, and it's a lot of work for it seems like nothing. But that's kind of I feel like the story of my UFC career, right? There's a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and I'm learning on the job. But I'm just trying to give myself a little bit of grace, give myself a little bit of time, and kind of I've just recently got hired as a full-time coach at Factory X, so I'm just kind of diving into that. I'm still a rostered UFC athlete, still, could take a fight. I just fought 6 times in 14 months and it was awesome. I'm not complaining about it at all, but I'm just going to give myself a little bit of time. I'm only 30 years old. And I think I've earned it. So, yeah, we'll see, but I'm making it day by day. I got a good support system around me, good people around me. Try to stay off social media and the rest will take care of itself, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to start. To stay the heck off of social media because it can be very toxic. I'm glad that you said you're still employed by the UFC because there were some conflicting reports. What people were saying, if you went on Twitter, everyone was saying you were cut and whatnot. Have you had any dialogue, with the UFC? Have they basically told you, hey, we're retaining you. You will have another fight when that time comes? Like, what kind of feedback have you actually got from the bosses there?
Yeah, I still have a fight left on my contract. And I didn't have any really negative feedback. I think anybody that saw the film or watched the fight, it was pretty blatant that those were illegal strikes, and many of them. So I don't think that anybody was really expecting me to continue or that should have been the expectation. And I don't think the results would have been that great for me or my team had I continued. Hence why I didn't. So I've received no negative feedback from the UFC, from my management. I think I've been a company guy. I've always said yes. I've taken really tough fights on short notice, and that pays dividends. And so, yeah, I'm not cut. I'm still on the roster. They're gonna find me a fight whenever I'm ready, and yeah, we'll just wait till I feel that itch again, and then we'll get going.
Whenever that time does come, Cody, if the UFC wants to rematch you with Abdul, is that something that you jump at? Would you like that to be your next fight?
Sure, man. Whoever. I've never said no to anybody. If you look at who I've fought in really tough guys. I've never had an easy fight. I've been an underdog in 9 of my 10 UFC fights. So saying yes is definitely not the problem for me. And yeah, if whoever they want to match me with, him, whoever, it doesn't matter.
One last thing just about the outcome of that fight. So obviously, just based on what you're saying, you would not have reacted differently. You did the smart thing for you, and you didn't continue with that fight. You wouldn't have done anything differently now looking back at it.
Nope, I wouldn't have. I owe the people that walk out to that fight with me to do my best. I owe my wife and I owe my kids, and that's about where that line ends on who I owe and what I need to do right by. And I did the best thing I could by those people and by my wife and kids, and no one's gonna make me feel bad for that.
Well, I'm excited to see you back in the cage whenever that is. Greg, I know you have some questions for Cody.
Yeah, Cody, again, big fan. I really appreciate all you've done so far and everything you're gonna do, man. I'm a former coach. I retired not long ago, but I want to talk to you about your relationship with Mark Montoya. Obviously, him having the faith to bring you in as a wrestling coach is huge. What kind of impact did he have on your life? Because I know you come from a small town in South Carolina, right? And I'm up here in the sticks of New Hampshire, like towns of like 2,000 people, like your town, and it's tough. And I send guys off, and it doesn't always work out, but it looks like it worked out for you. Can you tell me a little bit about how he shaped your life?
Yeah, I grew up in a super close family, as did my wife, and so she's from Michigan, I'm from South Carolina. Leaving home was never something I really envisioned or wanted, but it's just how it worked out. And having kids definitely complicates that mix of being away from family and not having that support. But Coach Mark and Dustin and these guys that I've gotten really close with, that's my kids' aunts and uncles and their family. And I've had the hardest moments of my life with those people. Just by proximity. I found out my daughter has a super rare genetic condition. Dustin was with me when we found that news out, right? I think he was fighting Cutelaba. It was the first time I ever cornered him. And I was like, man, this guy's never gonna bring me back. I'm a wreck. But it was never that. And so I think with Coach Mark and Factory X, it's just the culture, man. It really is truly a family. And like I said, I could be done fighting, and I know that I'll always have that support system. And I don't think that's the case everywhere. And I'm lucky, and I feel super blessed. I felt blessed when I was fighting. I felt spoiled when I was fighting, and I feel that way now. Now that I'm not necessarily fighting right now, and that doesn't mean I never will. But as a coach, I still feel that same support and blessing. And like I said, it is a true family. I know I could go to those guys for anything, and they know they could go to me for the same. So it's been a huge blessing for me and my family. And yeah, that'll always be a huge part of me. That's why I got it tatted on me. I got Factory X tatted on me because I love to rep them, and I always will.
That's awesome, and I think that shows in your fighting. You can't hide things in fighting. Your humility shows, and a lot of your love for your team really shows too.
Oh yeah, I truly do love the guys, and they know that. I think that's part of the reason we have such a good connection
Success.
Yeah.
and
There he is.
success. Yeah, like you said, when you go into that battle, man, you need to really trust those guys, trust their decision making, and I 100% have that. So I'm super lucky.
Yeah, Coach Mark's one of the best in the world for sure. A lot of great guys.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you back. I know that was one of my questions, but I think you answered it. I don't know when you're going to come back, but I do look forward to it. Whether it's a year, 2 years, or never, even that, you got my support, bro.
Yeah, you'll see me, man. I'll still be around. I'll still be in the corners, and like I said,
Yeah.
man, who knows what fight? I'm only 30. If I sat out a whole year, I'd be 31, which is like 20 years younger than Dustin, and he's still doing it. So I could still do it.
That's half a lifetime for me. So yeah.
Throwing darts at Dustin. I love it. Well, Dustin, let me ask you, man. Obviously, we saw you last time in the octagon in June, lost to Dominic Reyes. Is this a situation where you just got caught? Like, looking back on it, is that all that it is?
Yeah, I think so, man. I was very well prepared. We had a great camp. I love the matchup. I've been calling for Dominic Reyes for a year or so, and he just caught me, man. Dom's is still a major threat in that division. He's got a very powerful left hand, and that's the one way that he could have beat me, and that's the way that he beat me. It is what it is. I went out on my shield. I caught him just prior to that, and I saw the look in his eyes, and I told myself I'm going to go at him. The first little instinct I get, the first little feeling I get where I think I can get him, I'm going to go at him. And that's what I did. I went at him and just got caught with a big counter punch. And, he had my number that night. And Dom Reyes is, like I said, man, I said it before, he's one of the best in the division still. It's tough, man. Look at me. I've lost 4 of my last 5. It's hard to believe. I came on the scene, and 8 fights, won 7 of them, had that draw with Kutlaba. Life was good. And then all of a sudden you hit these speed bumps, man. But that's what happens when you fight the best guys in the world. You get in the top 15 of the division. There's no easy fights, and every one of them's a killer, especially in the UFC. So it's been a tough little stretch, but I'm still positive. I still see light at the end of the tunnel, and I still feel good about where I'm at and in my position in the UFC.
Yeah, I guess technically you've lost 4 out of your last 5, right? And with you now, 36 years old, you still look young. You still are fighting at a high level. Do you feel like you still have time to make another run here and move up that top 15 to get towards, an eventual title shot, which is I know what you want.
Yeah, man, I still believe I do. And if you look at my fights, I haven't slowed down in the cage. My body definitely feels it. It's been a lifelong combat athlete, from wrestling and taekwondo to football and basketball and baseball, just always competing. I've been really hard on my body throughout the years. And then 14 years of professional fighting, man, 6 of those years with Glory kickboxing. And, that took, the body took a lot of damage in those years as well. And, since I've re-signed with the UFC in August of 2020, I've been busy, man. I've been fighting very consistently, been very one of the most active guys on the roster. And it's all kind of catching up a little bit, but I really do feel like I've got, one more run in me, and that's what, I'm here to prove. And when my time's up, my time's up. But it's been a great run so far. I'm very thankful for the UFC. I'm very thankful for, everything that I've been able to provide my family with because of this career. And it's a tough way to make an easy living, man.
Well, again, we're excited to see you back in the octagon. One last thing from me, your current contractual status, how many fights do you have left on your deal?
So I signed a new deal before the Dom Reyes fight. So I've got 3 fights left on my deal. It is a performance based business. Like the UFC can cut you at any time. I've been through that before in the past, and you just never know, man. I did sign a 4 or 5 contract. I have 3 fights left on that contract, but again, it's performance based. If they're tired of seeing me in there, they can end it. Or, I feel like I've done enough. I always step up to the plate. I'm a gamer. I show up under the lights. And like you said, technically, man, I guess I lost to Khalil Roundtree, is what the judges said. And, then I had Azmat Mirzakhanov on the ropes, man, in the 3rd round, took him into deep waters and finished that fight really strong. That guy's undefeated. Nobody's been able to solve that puzzle. And had a big win against Kennedy and Nzechukwu, and then, unfortunately lost a close decision to Alonzo Minifield, a fight that I don't think the better fighter won that night. I just got caught with a punch in the 3rd round, and I've won fights that way by catching guys, so I've got no complaints. It is what it is. And then of course the Dom Reyes fight. So you just got to keep swinging. I tell all the guys at the gym, man, you got to keep swinging, you keep working hard, and good things happen to good people, and good things happen to those that continue to persevere. And that's what I've done. And hopefully, that could be my message to all the guys at the gym, man. Even when you're down on your luck, you think that, every time I've thought that about, starting a new chapter and starting a new career, something good's always happened every single time, ever since I was 24 years old and got cut from the UFC the first time, So, like I tell the guys, man, you just got to persevere, keep swinging.
Well, I do remember you telling me about your new contract before our last interview, so I'm glad you reminded me about that. That's good. So you still have 3 fights left. The UFC is not letting you go anywhere. I can guarantee you that. Greg, I know you have a question or two for Dustin.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Well, you said you got a couple of fights left. Do you have anything planned before the end of the year? Is there anything on the immediate horizon that we can look forward to?
Yeah, so I'm in talks right now. I think you're going to see me before the end of the year. I don't think the UFC's made it official, so I don't want to say too much, but I'm going to be getting in there by the end of this year. I'm pretty confident in that. And yeah, man, well, once it's announced, I'll definitely get with you guys. Know Ryan will have me back on, do a little interview. I love doing interviews with him. So the news is coming for sure.
Great,
December
great.
15th. That's the one. I'm sorry to interrupt, Greg. That's
Oh, go ahead.
December 15th. I want to see you on that card because I think that's the event I'm going to be at.
Is it December 14th?
Yeah, 14th, 15th. That was close. It was right around that time.
Well, you might be a happy man.
Okay, very good. Well, look at that. I love it.
Yeah, another question. I've been seeing Anthony Smith against Dominic Reyes popping up. Questions about that? Is that going to happen? Do you think?
Yeah, I think that.
Go ahead.
I think that's signed, sealed, and delivered. I think that's a done deal. I believe they are fighting, and I want to say it's that December 14th card as well, I think.
I think so. And what do you think? How does that turn out?
Well, I tell you what, man, both guys are very capable of winning that fight. Anthony is a friend of mine, a teammate of mine. I think he's still got it. He's a very difficult black belt. He's very difficult on the ground, and I think Dom Reyes is a very difficult striker with a lot of power in that left hand. So it's kind of a styles matchup, and the styles make the matchup. They make the fight, and I think it's going to be a good fight for the fans. Of course, I got to take my boy Anthony Smith coming out on top, but it's not going to be easy for either guy.
Yeah, December
Right.
7th. That's the date. UFC 310 is December 7th. So just to confirm.
Okay, is that when Anthony's fighting?
Yep.
December 7th, and where is that fight? Vegas?
That's in Vegas.
Okay, nice. Right on.
UFC 310.
Is that the one you're going to be at, Ryan?
That's the one I'm planning on being at. I also was thinking about going to the Madison Square Garden card just because it's a little bit closer to where I live, but I'm hoping I can go to both, honestly.
Nice.
Yeah, and December 14th. Get to all of them.
Yeah, right. I'm just going to be a traveling man, racking up those miles on the plane. Greg, anything else for Dustin or Cody
Yeah,
before we get to these fights?
just real quick for Dustin. What's it like getting down to 205? Is that tough for you? And have you ever considered going to heavyweight?
No, man, at 205 is actually pretty easy for me. I'm actually, when I made the move to 205, I do everything I can to bulk up when I'm in camp to put the weight on. And I've been doing a pretty good job of that. I usually walk around 220, maybe a little bit north of that, not by much. I was actually in Mexico a couple weeks ago and I got salmonella. And so I got pretty sick and I got all the way down to like 212 pounds and I still haven't recovered up. So now I got to do a good job of bulking back up. For me, 205 is super easy. So, for example, I'll be 220 on like the Monday before the fight week, the Monday of fight week. And then I'll travel to wherever the fight is. I'll weigh in. I'll be like 217, 218. And then Wednesday, Thursday, I'll kind of just slowly go down to like 212, 211, 210. By the morning of weigh-ins, I'm usually like 209 and I'll just go take a hot shower for about 30, 45 minutes and I'll be on weight. So the weight cut for me is super easy at 205. I fought the majority of my career in my younger days at 185. And that cut was super simple for me. But I think guys were much quicker than me. I think guys were a lot more wrestlers, a lot more grapplers. And at 205, there's a lot more guys that like to stand and bang, which is right down my alley. So I think I'm just a better fighter at 205. I have more energy. My cardio's better. And I can take those guys into deeper waters.
Perfect. Last question. I love the hat. I need one. What is the hat? What logo is
Yeah,
that?
man, I'm glad you asked. It's a Colorado-based company called Pins and Aces. Good group of guys. I've become pretty good buddies with them. I'm basically a brand ambassador. They hook me up with free gear all the time. They're big fans of myself. I hook them up with UFC gear, and they just support me, and I support them. And it's a great company, man. They started with Donald Trump head covers. They started that company in 2016, I believe, and it's grown into a big business. They've got 3 different warehouses. They are really taking over the game as far as apparel, head covers. They got the dopest head covers in the game. A lot of awesome swag. Their bags are awesome. So I highly support those guys. Their logo is pretty sweet. Pins and Aces, Colorado-based company. Check them out if you guys are watching. If you play golf, you got to have some of their swag.
Oh yeah, man. I'm going to send you my address real soon so they can get some free shit.
You got it.
Look at that. What a plug for the gear that you're rocking. I love it. And Cody, not to ignore your hat, Oklahoma State. That's where the greatest running back of all time went, Barry Sanders. Right?
Barry Sanders,
That's
baby.
right.
Oh yeah.
So
Shout
out to
too, baby. Shout out David Taylor, my boy, new wrestling coach hired there. Yeah.
Oh, is he? Wow, I didn't know. That's cool.
Oh yeah.
I love it. Both great hats, fellas. All right, let's talk about 305, shall we? The main event is for the middleweight strap. Dricus du Plessis, Israel Adesanya. I mean, right now it's like a pick 'em, -110 a piece. I keep going back and forth. Right now it's Thursday, so I'm leaning with Izzy, but tomorrow I might change my mind and go with Dricus. Let me start with you first, Cody. Give me your analysis on this fight. Who wins? How does it end?
Oh man, it's so difficult because I feel like he's kind of up and down, right? Like especially lately, and I feel like part of that was he was so great early in his title run, and then he lost to Strickland and looked pretty lackluster. For me, I just break down who has more ways to win. I think Izzy could knock Dricus out. He's one of the best strikers we've ever seen. But if you look at it, Dricus could knock Izzy out. Dricus could pressure Izzy and make it a super boring grind fest on the cage. Dricus could sub Izzy. Dricus could make it like a fight like Sean Strickland where he outpoints him. So I think Dricus just has more ways to win. So I would go with Dricus, even though I think Izzy is probably the more talented, dynamic guy. I just think that Dricus offers you more ways to get the W.
Very interesting. And Dustin, as a high level striker like you are, a lot of people are, getting on Dricus for how kind of sloppy he is or how he leaves openings when he comes in. I mean, Izzy is so technical and so precise. Do you think he's going to be able to catch Dricus and finish him, or are you going to lean with what Cody said and you're going with the Dricus to retain?
Well, first off, I got to give props to Cody, man, our new wrestling coach at Factory X. Look at him breaking down these fights. That was very well done. And I agree with him. I think that's very interesting concept. He goes with who has more ways to win. I think DDP does have more ways to win. But like you said, man, Adesanya, I think he's going to fight with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's got, there's definitely some bad blood here. And when a guy like Adesanya, when you put this kind of pressure on him, he rises to the occasion. I think he's very capable of catching DDP, ending the fight. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think Dricus is, that guy, he's really grown on me. I used to always go against him. And the more I watch him, he's just really hard headed and tough and durable and just. He's that prove you wrong type guy. He's like, okay, you can say what you want to say, but I'm going to get you. And he really has grown on me. Very tough, very durable. A lot of ways to win, man. I think I'm gonna go Izzy by later in the rounds by a knockout. Maybe round 4 or 5. I'm taking Izzy.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm going to say what both of these guys just said. I think what Cody said was right. Like multiple ways to win, but also who shows up, which Izzy shows up, right? Like, is it, does he have a fire in him? Does he not? He can be lackluster if he doesn't have a fire. So, and then, like Cody said, Dustin said, I think late rounds he's going to get the victory. I think Izzy has a more flexible mindset, if that makes any sense. Like Dustin said, DDP is kind of straightforward. He's got this he is multidimensional, but Izzy's much more multidimensional and can flex in between a lot more. That's how I look at it, and I think Izzy will prevail. He's got to show up with that mindset, right? He's got to show up with that fire, and if he does, I think he'll find a way to win.
This is the way that.
But we haven't seen DDP defend his title either. So a lot of times I think, like, what does winning a title mean to somebody? Is that the pinnacle? It's like when somebody gets their black belt and quits. I got my black belt, I achieved it. I got that. Do you still have the fire after working so hard to achieve that? So we'll see.
The way that I look at it, guys, is right now, all time, I think you'd have to say that Israel Adesanya is the number 2 middleweight in history behind Anderson Silva, right? I think most people would agree with that. So this fight to me is about Adesanya's legacy. If he loses this fight, it's going to drop him in the eyes of the public because he's lost a handful of fights. I mean, granted, he went up to 205 and lost to Blachowicz, but he needs to win this fight to kind of cement himself as like one of the all-timers, to be considered right there with Anderson. And I think he's going to do it. I feel like Dricus has more time. He's younger. He has more time to reclaim the title, to be there at the top of the division. So because of that, and because of what you said, Dustin, that, Izzy rises to the occasion, I think we're going to see the best version of him in this fight. But it's going to be interesting. I can see it going back and forth. So I don't know. I'm not going to bet a lot of money on it. I'll tell you that.
Well, absolutely. I agree with all you guys.
And I'm sorry, but Izzy's going to have the crowd on his side too in Perth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, I just want to make a point because it's been driving me crazy. DDP keeps saying, "I never left Africa. I'm the first African champ," and everyone just lets him say that, and we just act like he didn't spend the beginning of his career training at Kill Cliff in Florida. So unless Florida is now part of Africa, and I was not informed, that's not the case. And I think it's crazy that MMA media just lets him say, "I never left here. This is my home. I've never gone anywhere." It's not hard to find out he went and trained for a long time at Kill Cliff. So I find that kind of interesting as well. I want Izzy to win. My heart wants Izzy to win. I just think DDP gets it done.
All right. I wouldn't be mad at that. I like both of these guys. I hope they both stick around. There's been a lot of people saying that Izzy, if he does win, he might retire. So we'll see what happens. That's your main event, guys. We'll move to the co-main event. Steve Erceg, Kai Kara France. Right now, Erceg is a -155 favorite. Kai Kara France is a +135 dog. Dustin, let me start with you first on this one. Steve Erceg looked amazing in his fight against Pantoja. I thought he could have won that fight. It was so close, and I'm really high on him. I think he gets it done. Do you think he beats Kai Kara France?
I don't. I think Kai Kara France has a great takedown defense, and he has a lot of power in his hands. And I think Kai Kara France is going to catch him with the hands. sprawl and brawl tactic.
Okay. That would be a nice little upset. You could sprinkle that in a parlay. Cody, do you agree?
Again, I got to look at who has more ways to win, right? One thing that's interesting to me about Ursig, right, is he's a big flyweight, and Kai Kara France is very small. I do agree with Dustin that he has good takedown defense. You saw that in the Mir Albazi fight. But I think the threat of the takedown, even if you're not getting it, is going to slow the offensive Kai Kara France down. I think the length slows down the offensive Kai Kara France. And, Pantoja was a big power puncher, kind of a brawler with better wrestling, and he wasn't able to put Ursig out, even with the big stuff he was landing. It's tough, Ursig looked really good his last fight, I thought, against Pantoja. He looked really good against Matt Schnell. Obviously, had that awesome knockout. The two fights before that, he looked good, but you weren't like, man, this dude's a world beater, right? Kai Kara France has been at the top of the division for a super long time. I guess I'll go Ursig at home, Perth. I guess I'll go him. It's gonna be a tight fight. I think it'll raise Kai Kara France's stock because people think Ursig is the man right now. A lot of people thought he beat Pantoja, but I think Ursig's length and he's more dynamic. He has, again, more ways to win. I think that kind of pushes him over the top and gets him the win.
I just got to say, I love the fact that you guys are
fight.
differing with one another, that you and Dustin are on opposite sides. I love it.
Yeah, that's what makes the fight game so interesting too, man. I mean, every single fight this is what we do as a profession, but we all disagree on every fight. I mean, and then the cool thing about it is you got to go fight. We're going to find out.
Cody, what else were you going to say?
I said this is a 3-round fight, right? Co-main, 3-round co-main.
3-round. Let me just double check on that. While I do, no, it's yeah, it is a 3-round fight. Yep, that's right. It is 3 rounds.
I think that favors Ursig a little more as well, just because I think he's only had one 5-round fight. Kai Kara France has had a few, so less rounds will favor the guy who's done that. I think 3 rounds, when you're used to going 5 rounds, 3 rounds goes quick, right? You got to get busy. Your whole pacing is going to be completely different. Ursig's more recently fought 3-round fights, and I think that kind of gives him a little advantage as well.
All right, Greg.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Cody. I think Ursig's going to take it. I think both of these guys, Astro Boy's got very, very fast hands. So does Kai Kara France. I love the speed of their hands, and they both got great power. I say the hometown advantage being in Perth is going to be the difference, and that the roof's going to come off that place when he knocks out Kai Kara France. So check back on this video next week and hold me to it.
All right. Well, looking forward to it. We're probably just going to have to stick with the main card and maybe just touch on a couple of the undercard fights just to keep Dustin in line with what you got going on. So we'll keep it moving. Daniel Hooker, Matus Gamrot is next. Hooker plus 270 as an underdog. Gamrot minus 330 as a favorite. Cody, you're a wrestler. You're a pretty darn good wrestler. We know what Gamrot likes to do. Does he do it? Does he implement it against Dan Hooker?
I think he does, man. I think his wrestling is next level. I feel like the only person that's really pushed his wrestling that we've seen was Sarukian, who is also an incredible wrestler on par with Islam, as we saw in their first fight on short notice. So you're talking about the best of the best wrestlers in the division, and a guy who's not going to be flustered by anybody telling him don't do that, right? He's not going to be deterred from wrestling by anything that happens in that fight. No one has been able to stop his wrestling or deter him from wrestling. So I just, Hooker has a puncher's chance, just like everyone. He has good power. He has some dynamic stuff with his knees and his hands, but I just think 3-round fight, Gamrot's tough to beat, and it might be a boring one, but I think he gets it done.
DJ?
I agree, man. I think the odds are spot on for this fight. I think Gamrot's chain wrestling and cardio is off the charts, some of the best in the division. We haven't really seen Dan Hooker against a high-level wrestler. The Islam fight was short notice, didn't do too well there. He is dangerous, man. He's long. He's got power in his hands and great power in his knees, too. He's tricky with his knees, which Gamrot's going to have to watch out for, shooting in for that takedown. But I think his chain wrestling and cardio is just too tough for Hooker to match, and I think the odds makers have this one right.
Greg, are you in agreement?
Yes, I can't argue with any of it. I just think it's game plan, right? And executing the game plan. He's got great coach in Mike Brown, right? And they know exactly what they're in for, and they've been shown to be able to execute. And he knows what he's got to do. And I agree with both these guys.
All right, this next fight, I see some dog money here. Tai Tuivasa plus 185 against Yair Rozenstruik, minus 220 as a favorite. Look, I get why Rozenstruik is the favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if he does win. He's got a lot of power. Tai Tuivasa, 13 of his 14 victories are by knockout or TKO. That's what he does. And at this weight class, one mistake and that's all she wrote. So I love this from a betting perspective. I will definitely put money down on Tai Tuivasa. But having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if Rozenstruik wins. Dustin, let me start with you first here on this one. Where are you leaning? You going with Tuivasa or are you going Rozenstruik?
As a bettor, I love your Tuvasa play. I just don't think he gets it done, man. I think he's dropped some here lately. His confidence is probably wavering a little bit. Again, it is two very heavy hitters in the heavyweight division. You're right, man. Each guy's very capable of putting the fight away. I think Rozenstruik's just a little bit crisper, a little bit sharper, and I think he's going to get it done, man. I think that his cardio is a little bit better too.
Yeah, fair enough. Cody, I still have visions of what Francis Ngannou did to Yair Rozenstruik. I know that was forever ago, but seeing that knockout, it makes me feel like, Tuivasa could catch him and maybe finish him. Not quite as violent, but he could maybe, catch him and finish him. Do you think that's the case, or you going with DJ? You think Rozenstruik wins?
I again, I'm gonna disagree with my boy, but I think to me
I love it.
when I break it down, right? Tai Tuivasa has dropped quite a few fights, but mostly, not always, but typically he's dropping those fights to grapplers who come take him down, find a submission. His ground game, super suspect. Do I think Rozenstruik's going to come in and take him down? Absolutely not. I don't think that's in Rozenstruik's wheelhouse to do that. And the guys that beat Ty on the feet, it's a dogfight, man. It's tough to take him out. He's not a guy you one shot KO, and he's been in there with guys who hit hard, really hard, right? And we saw him kind of get picked apart by Cyril Gahn, who I think is maybe one of the most technical strikers in the heavyweight division, right up there with Aspinall. But Ty was able to find him and drop him. I don't think Rozenstruik has that elusivity, and I think, I think Ty will find his shot. I think he's going to knock out Rozenstruik. I say in the first round. I think he'll take him out in the first round. To be
And
honest.
then he's going to do a shoey after the victory. What do you think, Greg?
Oh
That's
yeah.
exactly what I was going to say, man. I want to. Does he do it if he loses too? I think he can do it either way.
Yeah.
Shoot the boot either way, man. But yeah, I mean, my heart's with Tuivasa. I love that guy. I mean, he's just he's fun to watch. You get that big overhand right coming. It's coming. You can't avoid it. Hopefully, he gets the win. My head tells me go Rozenstruik, but my heart's I'm going to be going with Tuivasa with by KO. Maybe I'll go with Cody and put it in the first round, but definitely by KO. So I can't wait to see it. That's going to be a fun fight.
This is why I do multiple bets for fight cards. So I'm definitely going to hit on one of them. I won't hit on all, but at least one or two. I usually do. I've won on both of you guys, just saying. All right. One more fight in the main card here. Carlos Prates, Jingling Lee, pretty huge discrepancy as far as the odds go here. Prates minus 350. Minus 370, Lee plus 295. Cody, let me start with you first on this one. Do you feel like the favorite's going to get it done, or you're going with the veteran and Lee?
First off, I think the odds are crazy recency bias. The Leech is a monster, right? We saw him get manhandled by Hamzat, but that's not really Carlos's game. Not that Carlos isn't a great fighter. I know he's coming on super strong. Was super impressed with him. I was at his last fight in Louisville with Dustin. Guy looked like a beast. We were all watching backstage like, wow, man, this guy's really sharp, super technical. He definitely has a ton of skills, but I feel like people are really selling on the Leech because he hasn't fought in a while, which I don't necessarily think is fair. I think he's a little more well-rounded, and he might have more ways to win, but this is the fight where, even though he has more ways to win, I don't think he gets it done. I think Carlos gets it done. I think he's a little too precise. I think confidence is a huge thing in this sport. Riding the wave is a huge thing in this sport. He has all the momentum. The Leech has been out for over a year, I want to say. And so I think things line up really well for Carlos to get the good job done. And then, that puts him around the top 15. And who wouldn't want to see that guy fight like a D-Rod or somebody next? So I think that's kind of where this is headed. And it'll be a fun fight, but I think Carlos gets him out of there.
I'm with you, actually, 100%. Everything you said. DJ, do you agree, or are you going the other way?
Man, I am going the other way because as a value better, I'm taking Lee, man. He's got a lot of value in that fight. Prates is a sniper like kickboxer, very good, man, very dangerous. But I think Lee, he has great boxing as well, and he's pretty durable, man. I think from a value perspective, I'm gonna go with the underdog.
Was
Okay.
he ripping darts after weigh-ins?
I know, man.
I didn't
I do
think
like
so,
that guy.
baby.
I think I might try that. So, in my last fight in June, Brates was out there ripping a dart, man, smoking a heater while we're all sitting on the bus post weigh-in. And I was like, look at this guy, man. And then we're right before his fight. I'm like, if this guy wins by knockout after my next weigh-in, I am definitely smoking a cig. And he won by knockout. I don't know if I'm going to hold myself to that because I have a big money bet with a good friend of mine that I will never take a rip of a cig again in my life ever. It grosses me out. Not that I was ever a smoker anyway, but there was times back in the day you get to drinking a little bit, you smoke a cig, whatever. That's something I'll never do again. So I can't hold myself to it, but that was very impressive on that man's part.
Yeah. Wow. That's
And a great story. And bro, he wasn't hiding it. He was out in front of where all the fighters were. He was in front of every single fighter on the boat, just owning it. So kudos to that guy, man. He's got something working.
wow, that's crazy. What a story. Thank you for sharing that. I'll tell you this. I agree with you too. I don't smoke either, but when I was younger, if I'd had a couple drinks, I would have a cigarette from time to time. The last time I actually had a drag off a cigarette was outside of the TD Garden before a Celtics game, and I puked everywhere, and people are walking
That's
by
it.
me. I was so embarrassed, and I wasn't even drunk. It was because cigarettes are so gross, and I vowed to myself
Yeah.
never again. And that was like 10 years ago. So I haven't
Yeah,
had one
man.
since and
Listen,
never will
Never
again.
again. I'm with
listen,
you on
you
that.
guys can make all these promises. Price goes knocks the leech out after ripping a dart. You're gonna see me ripping darts from now on. I don't give a damn.
I love it. Greg, where are you leaning on this one?
I'm gonna go with the inside intel on this. So I'm going with Lee to win by decision because Carlos is going to gas out from cardiovascular suffocation. So I'm going with the intel and going with the money and the dog on Lee, and I'm going with DJ.
Wow.
Let's
Okay. Yeah.
go.
I love the inside info. That's amazing. I'm definitely chopping that clip up and putting it out there. So that covers the whole main card, guys. When you look at the undercard, there's a lot of fights that are just massive, massive discrepancy in the odds. Jack Jenkins minus 700 favorite over Herbert Burns. He should definitely win that one. Tom Nolan minus 1,150 over Alex Reyes, who's a plus 750 dog. So that's kind of crazy. That's a huge, huge discrepancy. But when you look at
Yeah.
a couple of these other fights, is there anything that stands out to either one of you or Greg yourself? Like any fight that you feel like we got to have circled to maybe steal the show before the main card starts?
Luana Santos.
Casey
I like
O'Neill.
Luana Santos. Like Casey O'Neill. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I've seen, a couple of fights that I've seen her. I was really impressed. So that's my pick on the undercard.
Luana Santos. Okay. I like it. Josh Kulabau is facing Ricardo Ramos. That's pretty even. Kulabau minus 145, Ramos plus 125. DJ, Cody, do either of you guys have any thoughts on that?
I really don't. I mean, I would probably take Ricardo Ramos for the value if I'm a betting guy.
I'm just laughing because again, I'm gonna disagree with my boy. Dude, Kulabau, I think is super impressive. I think he's a dog. Like you go watch that fight he had with Melsick. He's an absolute beast. He can get the break speed off him for a little bit and find a way to win. And at home again, these Australian guys aren't losing at home. I don't think so. I would take him. But yeah, for the value, maybe go the other way.
Okay, I could see that. I do have one last question before we get out of here because I know DJ, you got to split. I'm asking this selfishly because I just interviewed Ricky Glenn. He's moving up to 170 to take on Keenan Song. He's a small underdog going into this fight. Cody or Dustin, Greg, do you guys think that he can pull the upset, or do you feel like this is a fight that Keenan Song should win?
Go ahead, Cody.
Yeah, I don't think Keenan Song's a especially big 170. So I think the size advantage, I think that's a pretty good tactical move by Ricky. He's not going in there and fighting a dude like Michelle Perez at 85 now, but a guy like that who's just massive for the weight class and he's good. I think he's pretty one dimensional. He has good boxing. That's the guy who fought Machado Gary, right? Correct.
Yeah, that was a few fights ago, wasn't it?
Right, but I'm just saying that's his opponent, right? I'm pretty
Y-
sure.
Yes. Let me just double check, but I
Yeah.
think you're correct.
So I think just having watched that guy, he has good boxing, obviously, decent power. Um, he's not a great nail, and Ricky has pretty good pace, pretty dynamic. I think he can get the job done for sure. Uh, just has to dictate kind of the range that the fight's taking place, and use a good blend of all the martial arts, and not get into a phone booth and turn it into a boxing match with a bigger guy.
You are correct. He lost to Gary in the third round, so he did get into the
Yeah.
third round with him, a tough opponent. DJ, any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, I think Ricky, I mean, he's a gritty wrestler, but he is moving up in weight. He's lost, I think, back-to-back knockouts. I don't think he can keep it up for the course of 3 rounds. He might be able to get him down a little bit early and often, but I think Song gets back up and puts the pressure on him, and I think he ends up putting him away, but probably TKO.
All right. Well, I'm really excited for this fight card, guys. Before we get out of here, where are you watching it? I'm sure you're both watching this fight. Greg, I know you're going to be leaving for Vegas soon, but where are you guys going to be watching this?
Shit, I might go to
Yeah,
DJ's house. I don't know.
yeah, we were just talking about that at the gym, man, trying to figure out whose house we're gonna go to. So we'll definitely be tuned in, man. The main event alone for me is a fight that's a must see. Again, those guys have had bad blood, and it's been over a year since we saw them in the cage going back and forth with Adesanya and his antics, and calling DDP out a little bit over his skin color, but being from Africa and all that. So I tell you what, man, the main event alone has sold it for me. I'll definitely be tuned in.
Yeah, can't wait to watch it. Before we do sign off, if there's anything that either one of you want to plug, Dustin, I know you got your gear on. Cody, I'm sure there's something you want to say. Let me just start with you first, Dustin. Anything you want to say? Anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for having us on here, man. Thanks for the platform for getting our voices out, let them be heard. What as always say, my team at Factory X, my team at Landau Performance, my team at Iridium Sports Agency. I got a great group of people around me, my family and friends, and of course the Pins and Aces gear, man. Best, dopest swag in all of golf.
Cody?
Yeah, I'll just steal all DJs. No, I'm just playing. My family, obviously, and just the people that ride with me. I know who they are. You're one of them. A lot of guys here are on that boat, and yeah, Factory X, Iridium. We're riding well, and I appreciate those guys. They do a lot for me.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Have a
You
good day,
too.
boys.